Hello everyone, welcome back. If you don't know who I am, my name is Mochi, and as per my last video, we're going to be using horrible color palettes. As a fun little art challenge for myself, I asked my audience what were some horrible color palettes that they could give me, and a lot of people have responded. I did choose a few color palettes, and I'm going to be showing you guys that any color palette can be a good color palette if you know what you're doing. Up first, we have Unpleasant from Regretivator. If you don't know who Unpleasant is, you don't have to, but all you need to know is that they have a really bad color palette and it's seen as unpleasant, therefore the name. Now just to clarify, the reference you see in the side of the speed paint isn't my version of Unpleasant, it's a redesign or a humanized version made by somebody else. And I am using it as a reference here, mainly because I draw humans, which kind of provides a challenge rather than just drawing a silhouette. I also don't know who else to draw, so why not draw the character themselves? One thing I tend to notice I usually have trouble drawing is with the nose specifically. For some reason, a lot of times I just really struggle with the nose no matter what type it is, and so you'll see a lot of my art I just don't include it. But alas, for my more realistic art, I do have to include a nose. Another thing I found to be pretty hard to do was make good values, as you need contrast in your art. But sadly, with this type of gradient, there is no contrast, maybe between the brown and the lighter colors, yes, but if you look at the green and the magenta and you grayscale them, they're going to be the exact same color. I mean, look at Unpleasant's hoodie, it's basically the same thing. But no worries, I got over it eventually. Around here is when I began to realize that I was coloring wrong. You see here, I'm beginning to use the brown color as the base for the skin, but because it's three colors, you have a base, a lighter shade, and a darker shade. So I'm going to have to use a base color, then use maybe green for the lighter shade, and brown for the darker one. I kind of was rusty on coloring with a singular color palette, so I just continued to render as normal without realizing what I'd just done. And it was until the part where you're supposed to shade, I realized you can't put brown on brown and expect it to be dark, especially when I'm working with a pretty strict color palette. So I replaced the skin with a magenta color, I did some green hair highlights, and then here's when I began to shade using the brown color. For the lighting part, I didn't really have a defined light source, so I was just kind of winging it from memory. And in the end, I think I did a pretty good job. Half of this speed paint is just me adding details like hair highlights, making sure the eyes look okay, highlights to the skin, etc. As I said before, the values will look incredibly wonky as I'm using two colors that are basically the same when turned grayscale. They just have different hues, and so it looks a bit messy when you mush them together, especially when they kind of cancel out each other. But that's color theory for you, and I did say I would try to make every single color palette work. After adding some more blush, some more rendering, some more shading on the hoodie, I finally finished the entire thing, and this is the final piece. Obviously, another slay, as I got some compliments, and that is 1 out of 4 horrible color palettes down. Next up, we have this ugly thing, and for this art, I actually made art of my own persona because at the time of recording this, it is my birthday, so happy birthday to me. I feel like the hardest part about this entire thing wasn't the color palette itself. That was very easy, but it was drawing the hair. For some reason, I can definitely draw curly hair, but it's very time consuming, and with my method, my wrist kind of hurts after a while, and I'm pretty sure at some point I did develop carpal tunnel syndrome due to this. I also went through many phases attempting to give myself a human nose that fit my face, but I ended up deciding to just give myself something similar to a feline's nose because it's my birthday, I can do whatever I want. Again, I'm not really using a lighting reference as I know what I'm doing. I'm also using a blocking technique, which is just putting down a bunch of colors in these big chunks, and then during rendering, you just take care of whatever seems to be off. Also, I don't mean to cause any fear for anybody, but recently AI has come to a point where speed paints can now be AI generated. It's honestly insane how artists are getting ripped off by this, but luckily AI is still in its juvenile phase and you can tell which content is AI generated or not. And I think one of the best things that can signify a human-made speed paint is the fact that some artists do get sidetracked. There will always be that one artist that puts math on their speed paints that crashes out and just randomly doodles all over the place. There will be doodles on the side, and perhaps they may even start drawing something else before returning back to the original art piece. It's moments like that that really highlight the process of making art because I understand your struggle. And with my last speed paint, it's mainly just rendering the hair, finishing the details, attempting to make this piece look appealing, even though it has some very ugly colors. And this is the final piece. You've got your base, you've got your lighter shade, and you've got your darker shade, which is all that you need when doing these types of artworks. Now for our next speed paint, I actually was a bit tired and burnt out of drawing original faces, and so I decided to draw a creepypasta character, which I'm still learning about to this day. Before starting to draw the character though, I did struggle a bit as I wanted to draw an original character, but I was really struggling on who to draw and how to draw it correctly. And so erasing, redrawing, and then erasing again, scrapping ideas, and then coming back to them was a really difficult process for me. But alas, a creepypasta character is what I settled on. This is Habit from the series Everyman Hybrid. Because it's a creepypasta series, I suggest checking the series out yourself. It's on YouTube, you can watch all episodes on there. It includes Slenderman and all that other stuff. If you're a creepypasta fan, you know what's up. And honestly, drawing a real face was a nice change. It kind of helped me learn how to define certain features. It also helped me to achieve a new type of texture while drawing. This color palette you see on screen isn't the worst, but it's not the best either. I'd say it does have good harmony, especially with the types of green it has. I'd say this color palette is kind of monochromatic, except for the just random purple in the middle. You can see here, just ignore the doodle by the way, you can see here that the skin and the hair is a bit scratchy. It has a type of texture to it, especially around the lighting area, and I just really love this type of new texture style I found out, and so I'm definitely using it in all of my future artworks. And once again, I did have a bit of trouble on the nose. I had trouble getting it to look like Habit's nose as in the reference, and so that's what I struggled on during the speed paint. That was probably the most difficult thing, other than attempting to make his hair and skin look presentable. After adding some more contrast, some more shading, and lighting sources, this is the final result. Pretty good, I'd say. And now, finally, the biggest and baddest color palette of them all. This color palette was especially difficult due to how complex it is. It truly is just a bunch of random colors, no good color harmony, and for me, it was incredibly difficult to color with this. I went through maybe 2 canvases before deciding to retry this color palette. I seriously considered replacing it because of how bad the colors were. But once again, I persevere, and I decided to make one more canvas with this color palette. Now just to clarify, I'm not too involved within the mouthwashing fandom, but because of its popularity, I'm bound to get some type of content on my For You page. So here's one of the characters I used as another muse, Daisuke. I don't really know how to say his name, so please correct me if I'm wrong. To me, I really like this character simply because of his character design. He looked like a happy guy. I've seen many fan arts of him depicting him as a very jolly fellow, and that's what I like about my characters, to be smiling. You can see here when I turn things grayscale that a lot of the colors look the same. Matter of fact, 3 of them look the same, so that was difficult in and of itself. I did attempt to make this look like Daisuke, but I eventually gave up because when I asked people, does this look like someone you know or like a popular character from a popular game, they said no. To be honest, I get it, because who would want to recognize this as their fave character when the color palette is literally so off and you've never seen this fan art of them before? I use both the green and the reddish color as bases for Daisuke's hair, as they are literally the same color. There is no difference when grayscaled. And I think adding double-toned hair kind of gives it not only a scratchy feeling, but kind of a more realistic side. I mean, when you look at hair, there are many different types of colors. Like, you can color pick in a person's actual hair, you will end up like 5 different colors. Yes, it could be from shading and stuff, but to be honest, I have seen people with multicolored hair. I also found a purpose for the blue. In my last canvases, I often used the blue as a type of blush for the skin, which ended up being kind of the wrong choice. I made the blue just a tiny bit lighter in color and put it in the hair instead of using it as blush. I have a theory as to why this works, maybe something about cool colors going with cool colors and more warmer tones going with warmer tones, like the yellow being used on the admittedly kind of purple skin, but it still has a bit of red in it, so it goes along with each other. It was a bit hard to use the yellow, especially on the skin, because it was so bright. You needed very little increments at a time. I would compare this to painting in real life because you had to add yellow increment by increment in order to make it look right, especially when you didn't have a lighting reference. Finally, I added some finishing touches, defined the wrinkles, and added a gradient with some personal color preferences. This is the final result. I am incredibly happy with this piece. How it turned out was way better than I expected to, and I hope to never, ever do this again. To be honest, I don't think we learned a lot other than don't use bad colors, but take what you will from this video. Always check your values before painting in order to see which colors go where, especially if you're using a color palette. And if using a certain type of color for maybe the skin doesn't work out too well, you can always switch it around. See which color combos go well with each other. This was just a personal challenge so that I can interact with my viewers and see where I am with my coloring skills. But hopefully you as my viewer can do something similar. Push yourself to your limits and see how far you can get. If you figure that you can't do something, work on it. Thank you so much for close to 150 subscribers. I appreciate every like and comment. If you like more commentary or art challenge styled videos, let me know in the comment section. All my art and more is posted on my Tumblr, Blue Sky, or Twitter. As a small content creator, I hope to build a small community. You can help me by joining my Discord server linked below. Joining, you can receive personalized art help, or you can join to participate in future videos. When our server is big enough, I hope to host game or movie nights and other special events. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Simply rearrange them, no stretching required, into 2 exact copies of the original item. Saved in